Good morning, everybody. Welcome to People, Passion, and Purpose. I don't have a sidekick today. I feel a little bit lost. My good buddy, Mike Asherbanger, that we celebrated, it's his birthday is tomorrow. So if you haven't done it yet, go wish him a happy birthday. And we had a special treat last night. We created a whole Hands of Business show around him, and it was so much fun. It was so much fun. So if you missed it, go to the Hounds page, go check out the show, and check out us laughing at Mike and paying tribute as well to him. But hey, guys, today I have yet another great guest because every week I bring people I want to get to know more, and I want to shine a big spotlight on them. And today is no exception. If you watched last week the show with Greg, well, it is his better half. They're partners in the great podcast you should absolutely listen to. We're going to talk about that a little bit towards the end of the show, so you're going to have to stay tuned. In the meantime, beautiful Sindel, run the intro, please. Business is no longer only about products and services. More than ever, it's about connection and community. Business is about people. And that's why I created these live events. Every week, join me in discovering one remarkable individual. No shop talk here. It's about who they are and not what they do. My name is Isabel Fortin, and welcome to People, Passion, and Purpose. So last week I had the extremely interesting Greg on, and this week I have the just as much interesting and I think funnier version of the Moped Outlaw. And please, guys, welcome Mark. Hi, Mark.
Hi. Just to Greg, if you're listening, I think you're beautiful. And I might be funnier looking, but that's okay.
Hey, everybody has their strength, dude.
That's right.
The fact that you're funnier than Greg doesn't take anything away from Greg.
Yeah. And my strength, body odor is not the best strength. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my God. Did you wear your tutu today? Because when I was on your show, you got up and you twirled a little bit for me, if I remember correctly.
Oh, I guess I did. No tutus today.
Aww.
I'm not wearing anything underneath this shirt, so no tutu.
Well, okay, am I blushing?
I'm just kidding,
yet?
folks. I have pants on.
Yeah. Look, Ma, no hands. This is going to be a fun show, I can tell.
Yeah. Life's too short not to have a decent sense of humor and playfulness. In fact, play is such a powerful way to lead the day.
Hot damn and hallelujah. Yes, and it's early in the morning, and I appreciate you doing this live very often because you're West Coast, correct?
Yeah, I live in California, and I was up already. I've been up for almost an hour and a half. So
a lot of times when I ask the West Coast people to be on the live stream at 7 a.m. Eastern, they go, "Oh, it's live, right?" Yeah, it's. We're doing this live. I prefer the live version than the recorded, and that's the only reason I don't have a podcast. I prefer live stream. I don't know. There's an energy thing to it that's different, I find.
I was been thinking about it. I'm excited about it. I like to do things live, and music being one of them. So,
you play an instrument?
Yeah, I play guitar and sing in a band, in a couple bands actually.
Okay, so hopefully that's gonna come out in your questionnaire.
We'll see what I
We'll,
choose to, what you ask
we'll
me. It might come
see.
out. Who
We'll
knows?
see. Well, without further ado, Mark, first question. It's always the same one. Who has had the most influence on your life and why?
Wow, that's so tough because there's so many great influences. Yeah, I'm gonna avoid the easy answer of picking someone famous that you could all understand, but one of the most powerful influences on my life is a gentleman named Ken Blackman. And Ken and I have a long history, and it's sort of an interesting story. Basically, we went to junior high school together and we formed a band. And Ken at that point was already extremely good on the keyboards. And he was playing with Pete Escovedo on the side and some really powerful salsa musicians. But we were more of a folk rock kind of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young kind of enclave. And so when we started, he would challenge me musically to learn more chord voicings and to do things a lot more with more sophistication, but no pretense. And he, so that was really a powerful start to our musical relationship. And then after high school, we kind of didn't see each other for a long time. And then 30-ish years later, we had sort of reconnected, talked a little bit. And right then I was getting a divorce and came to find out that Ken's a relationship coach. And he sent me to a seminar right away that changed my life, which was something from an organization that he'd left behind, but that still had in it this men's work group called the Ignited Man Process. And so he said, here, go this, just go sign up. I know it costs money, but just do it. Trust me. And it changed my life. And he and I are good friends today. I ended up taking his year-long coaches training called the Coaching Dojo. And then we host a meeting in a closed group called the Craft of Intimate Coupledom. He's the host and I'm the co-host in that. And we have a great friendship today. And now it's all about coaching and coaching relationships. He doesn't play music anymore. So that sort of makes me sad. But yeah, Ken Blackman's probably the biggest influence on me. He's been a lifelong companion and someone who really, really has helped me. He was a former Apple coder, and he's been a relationship coach now for over 15 years. Excuse me.
Wow, that's so interesting that you guys were like pals in high school, and then as it often happens, the roads kind of separate after high school, and then for him to waltz back into your life in the precise moment that you needed what he had picked up along the way, that's so fantastic.
Yeah, it was divine timing for sure.
Yeah.
And we had kept in touch, but we didn't spend time together. It was like little bits here and there, especially once the internet had started up again, because we were pre-internet friends.
Yeah. We I think we've all done that. Like we're close to the same age, I think, if not the same age, but
yeah.
As soon as Facebook arrived, we kind of went, oh, okay, so where's this person and where's this person and I don't know about you, but after catching up and realizing where they were, I just kind of went, yeah, okay, well, okay, so I know now, and it kind of just satisfied my curiosity, but it didn't really, in my case, it didn't rekindled any big relationships. It was fun to see where they were. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want me to give you another answer? I have another name for you.
Yes, I do.
Okay. Evel Knievel was one of the other major influences in my life.
Oh my God, we are the same age.
For those of you who aren't our age, Evel Knievel was one of the first televised daredevils, and he used to jump his motorcycle over all kinds of nutty stuff.
A badass.
And I've been a kind of a daredevil in different ways all my life. Back when I was young and a soccer playing fitness, I would do crazy things with my bike and my skateboard, and I always admired Evel Knievel. The downside is the more I understood as I grew older what a misogynist and how horrible he was from certain points of view. But his devotion to showmanship and his fearlessness in achieving these stunts was really a model that I use in my life.
He there's okay, two things about Evil Knievel. The first thing is, yeah, he really was a badass. He, oh my god, he was like the first jackass.
In a way, but he wasn't.
Yeah.
He always wanted to actually do it successfully, but he failed accidentally.
Yeah, I think he broke like every bone in his body like several
Yeah,
times.
yeah.
But the second thing that I wanted to say is, here in Montreal where I live, there's a highway that's elevated in the middle of the island because Montreal is an island, and I call that highway the Evil Knievel Highway because, oh my god, people go cuckoo on, yeah, it's very funny that, yeah, he was, but you know what? It's, you say about the fact that he wasn't a kind person, and he was, uh, yeah, he treated women badly, But back then, dude, like we didn't, there wasn't that that awareness. I mean, look at everything that came out, about Bill Cosby, or I mean, Bill Cosby would literally pick up the phone and call stand-up comics that swore on stage, and yet, did or was doing what he was doing to his coworkers and his female coworkers and women in his life. So it wasn't of the time, right? So it's, for me, it's kind of proof that we still have ways to go. I'm not saying otherwise, but we still have come a long way from this kind of male, um, toxicity.
Yeah, I mean, what the way he conducted himself in his personal life was definitely not the thing I admire.
Yeah.
But I think the willingness to take risks, and then when you make a promise, when you say to your audience, "I'm going to do this," and then follow through, that's a really important piece of integrity. And
Mhm.
I admire that. Like even when things were looking grim, but he knew he had to do it. Show must go on, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
he kept his word. And one of the interesting things that's this is a little deeper. At that time in my life, I was on the West Coast and things were shifting around what masculine identity was. And I was one of the first
Mhm.
people, first generation of young men to be told your feelings are good. Like learn to be soft and learn to have feelings. And so I had this really sort of quasi hippie upbringing, and Evil Knievel represents a masculine, sort of more typical archetype. And I needed a little bit of that daredevil energy to really pump me up and get me going in the
Yeah.
right direction.
Yeah. I understand. It's, I think it was the beginning too, in this era where men were slowly, um becoming aware of of how to treat women better and how to act in a kindest way, and at the same time being more, connected to their own feelings, right? Because for the longest time, I think we are one of the last generations where I think that, and please share if you want to, but I think that our generation, as the little boys, were taught not to cry, not to do, and all that bad things, that bad, um, way of dealing with emotion, and somewhere in your youth there was a shift. Is that how it was for you? Is that how
Well,
you
for me,
experienced
I
it?
was on the what you might call the bleeding edge of that movement. My parents started giving me permission to actually express myself when I
Mhm.
was still in single digit age, like 7, 8, 9 years old.
Wow.
And the challenge for me was that when I got to junior high and high school, emotional intelligence from men was not there. And so I'd been given this sort of utopian vision about men. It's okay for men to have feelings, but then it didn't play out that way in the culture I was in. It was still, even in Berkeley, it was still very much, men were locked down and they didn't have, wasn't okay to share and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was a sort of different trial for me because I was raised that way. I had a whole different set of challenges that showed up for me. But
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for that because I've had some great relationships with women over life, and my emotional intelligence has always been worth the extra vulnerability and risk.
Yeah.
And I'd say right now I'm an emotional daredevil, which means I'm strong, I have a spine, I have a purpose, I'm really devoted and clear about my masculine energy. But at the same time, man, I totally know what's happening in my somatic experience and how that
Mm.
ties into my emotional experience, and that gives me tactical empathy for everything I do.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's one of the key things that I coach about.
Yeah. It's funny because when Greg was on last week, and I don't want to make this show about last week's show, but we talked about empathy a little bit, and there was somebody in the audience. I'm sure she's going to show up, but her name is Melissa Robinson Weinmiller, and Melissa is doing her second PhD on empathy and actually on EQ through empathy. And I said that to Greg, and I'm going to say this to you because I think that she so should go on your podcast. She's a lot of fun. She's like my sister from another mister, but yeah, because it's so important, and I find it extreme, like on a personal level, I find it extremely beautiful that men, my generation, the boys that I grew up with, to be a witness to this like 180 where no, bullying isn't cool, and no, you don't treat women like that, and like, who the hell do you think you are by trying to impose your wish or impose your way on your female counterpart. So it's, yeah, I didn't think that we were going to get there, but it was something that you said that kind of triggered that inside of me, which is a really, really good thing, because I think that the more positive men examples that we can show the world, like you, like Greg, and like so many people that I know, then the more chances that we have that this is going to change, for not only continue to change, but change so that everybody is just being recognized as the human being that they are, regardless of age, regardless of color, regardless of sex
Gender.
and gender, and regardless of sexual orientation,
Yeah.
because at the core, that's what we are. We're humans, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I agree with all of that. And I would add, there's a misconception that male-bodied people, masculine people have about power. And
Yes.
typically they don't understand the power that as a result of EQ, because dominator matrix power is power over, and it's very brittle and it's ultimately weak. But power with is a function of EQ,
Yeah.
emotional intelligence, and the ability to actually have intimate conversations with people at whatever strata you're working, whether that's professional intimacy or personal intimacy.
That's beautiful. You spoke a little bit in the beginning of the show about the fact that you're a musician, and
Mhm.
that's kind of my segue to the second question: is what is or are your passions, and what did you do to discover it or them?
Well, music's always been a part of my life, and that's the easy answer. So I'm going to go with the harder answer.
Wow, beautiful! I love that.
I am really passionate about seeing men shift into this new possibility for themselves. And, it arises out of my work life because I had an amazing run at Lucasfilm, 21 years at this incredible film company. And when
Wow.
that was ending, I was at a loss. I was like, what am I going to do that's going to inspire me to get up in the morning and produce and deliver at the level of excellence that I'd been producing and delivering at for over 21 years?
Mhm.
And it took a while, but I realized witnessing the shift that men have available to them in their lives, in their work life and in their personal lives, as a result of doing men's work or being in a coaching container, is so gratifying. And it's also can be equally a struggle. It's not easy getting men to connect to themselves. And so my passion really is showing up every day and making a difference by helping one man shift the way he operates in the theater and the way he operates in his life. And
Yeah.
seeing my clients, I mean, it's such a business statement, but seeing my clients have the relationships they want and make the shifts that have them get the economic, prowess that they want is
Mhm.
really amazing. I wake up thinking about it. I go to bed thinking about it. I read about it. I'm doing all this stuff to really show up at the highest level for that interaction. And besides my own personal relationship, which is really, really important to me, that gives me the most satisfaction and this is the most sort of passionate thing. And I'm passionate because most of the guys are running around, they don't realize that there's like a 60% upgrade to their havingness that's available to them, both in the professional arena as well as in the personal arena. And men think about sex and that's their measure, but they forget what the real depth of an intimate relationship can be like and what that does for their body. Like the hormones that you get from being really actually intimately connect with someone are really part of health.
Yeah.
Important part of longevity is to have all of those toxic things like cortisol and adrenaline just get calmed down.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm passionate about how that works, and it starts with learning to feel yourself because that's empathy is only possible if you can recognize the emotions and sensations that are in your body. And then once you have an intimate relationship with yourself where you notice, oh, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling jealous, I'm feeling sad, that's when you can empathize because you have a reference point for your own
Mhm.
experience. And then that bridge that you build of understanding or feeling, literally feeling what someone else is feeling, that's when the work really begins because we don't have good language for men about how to communicate at this level. We don't have a way for them to ask for what they need or to make requests from people that are effective. It's the dominator sort of male power over paradigm is part of what's causing the decay of Western civilization. And
Mhm.
we're asking men to change, but we're not giving them the tools.
That is very true, but the oh, so many things to say. Um,
Say the funniest one.
I think that men underestimate how often women think about sex. I think that women are because you talk about men and you are a man and you help men in your coaching, so I understand that. I'm going to bring you the female counterpart. Um, I think that you're right that men need to learn to communicate better and to be connected to themselves, to their body, to why sex is important because it seems to me, and I don't want to presume stuff, but it seems to me that the way that men feel about sexuality is a little bit more about instant gratification, and the way that as a whole that women think about sex is more about the deep connection. However, and there's a big however in this for me, is the downfall for women is that their sexuality is more about connecting to the other one, to their male partner or their female partner, and less about connecting to themselves. And it should be about connecting to yourself first, because
Mm.
that's how you get connected to the other person in a deeper level. Um, and yeah, it is my understanding that for most guys, it is more about instant gratification. Am I wrong?
Well, the conditioning that we receive through advertising and through what we call male archetypes is would have us believe that.
Mhm.
But one of the things that Ken Blackman, who I spoke about earlier, did was he did a research project where he interviewed lots and lots and lots and lots of men and women. And one of the things that he found out through his research was this idea that men want sex and instant gratification and women want connection is actually flipped.
Hmm.
And that underneath the desire for instant gratification is a deep longing in men to have the connection, the afterglow effect. but we don't teach them how to cultivate the
No,
awareness that that's what they want, and they
right.
don't, right? And so we're conditioning them because we can use male responses. The speed at which a man becomes motivated to do something through a sexual stimulus is very quick, and
Yeah.
that's been leveraged by economic forces in our culture through beer
Hmm.
advertising. Like, just everything, you can tell, like,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
really about the male gaze, right? So
Yeah.
when we break that down, what most guys want is they want to feel connected to a woman they trust
Hmm.
underneath that, and the sex is a pathway to that post-coital feeling of intimacy and connection. Again, those calmed nerves, all those
Yeah.
things. And
Mhm.
women actually have all of the emotional needs that they want available to them in lots of ways from this research. And what they really want is a male partner who understands their bodies and who understands how to feel what they feel physiologically, moment to moment, so they can keep with the thread, so they can follow the energy. And the term that we use in coaching circles and relationship circles is attunement. So that's
Mm.
the theory that I've heard from Ken, and I'm in the curiosity about it. Again, with these theories, it's never absolute, right?
No.
There's always nuance to it. But I think this is a powerful contemplation. Like, men, if you what you realize is that the sex is just a pathway to intimacy, and that you want the intimacy, there's something there for you to explore that's really powerful and
Yeah.
enriches your life, both from a health perspective and a longevity perspective, but
Mhm.
also from this point of what's possible when your team, your your partner, whether it's a man or a woman, feels complete trust and surrender and connection to you, and then you guys are harmonizing in all of your actions and all your, it's not a battle, it's not a, there's no resentment, there's no power loss anywhere. Like, it's, so that's kind of my viewpoint on it. I think we've been taught to follow the instant gratification piece, but
Yeah.
how much ED meds are we selling? Everybody's worried about the fact that they can't keep it up, or they're they're having an experience that happens too quickly, right? And so the answers to those questions are in actually finding the energetic resonance, the point of connection, because a lot of that ED and a lot of that quick climax stuff changes when you change the energy in the way that you
Mm.
connect.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, and the example that I have to validate, or I don't know what the word is in English, but to add onto what you're saying is, you'll have a 50 something gentleman who's been married to the same woman for, let's say 30 years, all, and in needs of meds to, perform sexually. And then something happens to the relationship, they split up, and he meets a new woman, and all of a sudden he doesn't need the meds anymore. So it wasn't physiological. The problem was, whether it's communication, desire. I'm not going to go, I've never been married. I'm not going to talk about divorce. I don't know what it's like, but there's something, there's something new. There's something changed in his energy
Right.
that makes all of the sudden the physiological aspect work.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. We do push the Viagra, and of course we do, because it's a quick fix.
And it's
Take
putting
that,
all this
you'll be happy
performance
again.
pressure on people,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I don't think we're going to talk about this today, but I'm loving this conversation.
Me too. I'm
How
very
was it?
passionate about this.
How was it for you? And do not feel obligated to answer, because it is a deeply personal conversation, or question. But how was it after? Because you started this journey after a divorce, or in the midst of a divorce, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so how was it for you to change your paradigm, and then adapt your new way to what I'm assuming is a new partner?
Yeah.
So how did that work for you on a personal level? Again, don't feel obligated to the answer.
Oh, I'm happy to share it.
Okay.
I'm an open book pretty much.
Beautiful. I
Um,
love that.
My marriage wasn't working, and the
Mhm.
reasons behind that, were complicated, right? I think the
As they are.
important thing to say is there were some things that were happening that were a result of her responsibility, and some things that were happening about my responsibility. And
Mhm.
because I had chosen monogamy and had chosen to be in a long-term, lifelong commitment, when I could feel it starting to come apart, I became very inquisitive about how I was showing up. And
Mhm.
even in the last couple years before the divorce, I was already working on myself to try and transform the situation and trying to understand what it was about me that wasn't creating the energetic resonance that I wanted in my relationship.
Mhm. Mhm.
I wasn't able to shift it all through that because, again, part of what was happening was something that was about my ex-wife. And I'm not going to go into details
No,
about
no,
that
no,
here
no.
because I
No,
don't
no.
have her consent for that.
It's not
But
about her. Yeah, yeah, no, it's not
she
about
and I
her.
decided after working as hard as we could to stay together, no kids, that it wasn't right, and we split up. And then I went even deeper into my own internal exploration of what had I done to co-create this outcome. And
Mm.
because of the serendipity of my friendship with Ken, I was given access to a resource right away where I started doing men's work. And it was the kind of men's work that had emotional content as part of its core curriculum. But it also, I went on to further develop and enhance what we'll call masculine energy, right? So masculine energy has this quality has a definition of, but when you inject it with high levels of EQ, it becomes something even greater, right? So
Mhm.
I started on this journey because I really wanted to know about myself because I didn't want to take it into the next relationship and repeat the pattern and end up where I was. It took a long time for it to fall apart, and that was very uncomfortable, and I did not
Mhm.
enjoy the decaying process of that relationship. And I
Yeah.
didn't want to just adopt this idea, well, relationships don't work. You jump as soon as it looks bad. That wasn't for me.
No.
Like some people have that attachment style and nothing against them, but that wasn't what I wanted. When I
Mhm.
was in those first 6 months of really deep diving into my own behavior, I had a flashback. Someone said to me, one of the leaders in one of the groups, a guy named Zat Baraka alias, said to me, Mark, you ask really potent questions of some of the other participants. Have you ever thought about coaching? And it dawned on me that my parents had made me into a coach when I was 9. They were running group therapy sessions on the weekends based on a book called I'm Okay, You're Okay, which was all about emotional intelligence at the time. And what they would do is they would have married couples come in and do the weekend workshop. And when they would come in, they would have me take care of the kids and do the daycare. And in the daycare, I was running the same thing. We would do regression therapy and everybody go around the circle and tell us what you're feeling and all of that stuff. And so I realized in that moment when Zot said to me, hey, you might be good at this, that I actually had been doing it since I was 9. And that's when I decided, oh, I need to go deep into the training aspect of it. And
Mm.
so at that point, I was working at another job. I had gotten another archive job with a company called the Internet Archive. And while I was working my day job, I was training at night and on the weekends. And I got a certification that took a year. And then I got a couple more certifications over the couple years. And then in 2018, I started my coaching business officially. And that was the evolution of it. And it was all based on the idea of if I take radical responsibility for this outcome and I examine myself and the energy that I am emanating, what could shift for me? And I still live in that question today. Every day, every breath, I'm checking in with myself. And, just this week, my partner and I had something come up where I was showing up in a way that didn't feel good to her. And because our relationship's based on trust and honesty and radical responsibility, she was able to say to me, hey, this didn't feel good. And I was able to say, I can see why and own my part of it. And then there
Mhm.
was a part of it that was triggered by her behavior. And I was able to say, hey, and this is what happened. This was my experience around how you showed up, and it's not that it's your fault, right? That wasn't the story. The story was, hey, this is what was happening, and that's where my disruption was originating. And that so we were able to express ourselves fully, take responsibility for each of the things that we did, and make new agreements to not do this again, to shift it.
There is nothing I don't like in everything you just shared.
Oh,
There's Mark, I knew we were going to have an interesting conversation. I knew that from our previous one, but um if everybody would just take even 10% more responsibility about their own behavior in any situation, any kinds of relationship, anything at all in their lives, this world would run so much smoother. So much smoother, because she was able to say, hey, listen, Mark, this is what it triggered. This is what it woke up. This is what that did. And so let's sit and discuss what
yeah.
what this is, what it means to you, what belongs to you, what belongs to me, and let's fix it and make sure. But what I'm also hearing from what you said, Mark, and that I absolutely, absolutely, absolutely adore, is you both came giving one another grace.
Right.
Because there's something that belongs to her and there's something that belongs to you. And you're both going to sit there and hold the space. And I know it's like very popular now. You need to hold space and blah, 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 and be safe. And yeah, but it's popular for a reason. It's becoming a cliche for a reason. It's because it is necessary. And if you want to grow and continue building this amazing relationship with this partner, then you need to both be accountable for what belongs to you and be in grace, or give the other person grace for giving them time to figure it out and to hold it, to own it, to fix it, to live it, and to voice it. That is so important. And there's nothing I don't like about what you have to say.
Awesome. So I'm going to take it to the next level.
Love that. Go.
So one of the things that I've come to realize is that when you tap into this self-awareness at a high level, you begin to understand how you operate and the way that emotions move the body.
Yeah.
You can tune that to what I call professional intimacy, which is compliant with HR. Like, we're not talking about intimacy romance. We're talking about this level of emotional intelligence in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
And how much more leadership you can provide if you're leading a team, and how much more co-productive energy you can bring together as a team when everybody knows how to speak to each other from these new places. And it's not that hard once you understand the language of it. That's the key. We don't teach the communication skills that go with how do we deal with this person that we have an issue with, right? And HR is there to sort of put boundaries around lawsuits. They're not there to teach you how to get the nuance out of team performance necessarily. And they're right. I mean, harassment and various things make people uncomfortable, and consent is a huge piece in any interaction. But the thing I love, one of the things that I'm driving at, is this idea of professional intimacy. And it lives at the place of calibrated self-awareness and communication skills, where you can get a sense of what your constituency is, whether that's your employee or your boss or the team that you lead. What are the emotional drivers that are motivating them? Because compensation and then consequences, that's this level of productivity. You got your compensation, which is driving the upper level, and then you got your consequences, which are keeping people from falling below. But when you motivate them from their why, like Simon Sinek says, and you get them emotionally invested in the vision of what it is you're trying to achieve, there's no lid on the productivity anymore, because people want to put their power and energy into something that means something to them. And when you create a dynamic where people have the ability to have candor in their professional relationships, now you've got an organization that is humming along and productive and driving the results.
You are A, preaching to the choir, B, speaking my language. And yeah, that's literally what I do for a living is I help leaders adapt their communication style, their leadership style, their everything, the way that they show up as themselves and adapt it to every single member of their teams, because it's not a pet peeve. It's not, it's a need. Somebody is going to need that you be straight to the point and that you almost talk in bullet points, and the other person needs for you to walk in their office and say, hi Susan, how are you, how was your weekend, how's your dog doing? And that's a need. She's not that the person, it's a cognitive preference, it's a behavioral preference. And when each leader know how their team member, and it's the same thing in a love partnership, in a business partnership, it is how we interact with other humans. And one of the things, and I'd love to hear you about talk about that, Mark, but one of the pushback that I get the most often is, yes, but if I adapt myself to everybody, then I'm not being authentic. Well, that's a load of crap. It's crap. It's not a lack of authenticity. It is high emotional intelligence, and it is adaptability. It is, you're not stopping from being who you are. You are adapting your language to what the other person understands and how that person understands the world and how they see the world. And that is how you get shit done.
Yeah.
If we're only talking about business, that's how you get shit done. You get more collaboration. You get a higher efficiency, higher profitability. You get higher everything. Thank you, Jason. Jason is going crazy. But it's true. It's you can tell. I'm sorry, I'm making the show about me, but this is how you get things done. And now you all know what my passion is, which resonates with yours.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's part of why I think we're having such a good time together, because we really resonate together. I want to
Yeah,
add something to it, which is the
please.
thing that you mentioned in your example. That's the low hanging fruit. That's the easy stuff, right?
Yeah,
And on a certain level, it's not as deep. Like, how's your dog? It's there. It's a connection point. But when someone isn't meeting their KPIs and they're having an emotional reaction to it, that's where the rubber really hits the road in
yeah,
terms of EQ in the workplace, because there
yeah,
needs to be a way to navigate that so that that person isn't hiding that performance issue until they get their review, until the
yeah.
quarterly meeting, because the time to address those challenges is the week it shows up.
Yes.
We're living in a much faster paced business environment now. And so it's really important that candor, I've said this word now a couple of times, in a functional business way, right? It's not, hey, I'm not meeting my KPIs because my boyfriend got drunk last night, yada, yada, yada. It's really about what's the thing that's in the way of you dealing with whatever the challenges are to
Yeah.
achieve the result. And if we're a team, that means there should be effective ways to help you unpack that get
Yes.
you back on target. And that's where EQ in the workplace really does its work. It's not necessarily about the personal issues, because again, there is a reason for the high wall around compliance and around personal issues in the workplace. It's a really good
Mhm.
reason. But when you teach people the language of connection around how to conduct themselves with candor in the workplace, then those adjustments in workflow and in challenges can get addressed by the team. And then you actually feel supported by your coworkers, even maybe the one who you're either jealous of, who is sniping at you behind your back or whatever. All of those things have an opportunity to get worked out in a
Mhm.
way that brings harmony back to the workplace. And I think you and I could go for 2-3 hours talking about this subject.
Oh, nonstop. Audience, no audiences. Yes, I agree. And my example, not that I want to add, but because we're going to move, but um, my example was just as far as the communication preferences. Some people absolutely need the bullet point. They're busy, and their cognitive preferences is that way, and they don't want the whoop whoop, and they don't care that you know what they did over the weekend. And some, this is what their preferences is, are, and others is no. If you don't interact with them as a human being first, before you ask whatever questions in regards to the business, then they're going to feel hurt. I know these people because I am one. I am
Yeah.
extremely relational. And if you walk in the well, I was just going to say the downfall. It's not a downfall, but as for me, it also shows up with, you're going to be told how to interact with me. But a lot of people, that's not how they function in the world. So if you walk in my office, you go straight to the point, and you don't look at me in the eyes, and don't take the time to connect with my humanity, with the fact that I am more than just the person that executes the job, you're going to say, okay, so you're going to walk out of my office by the same door you walked in. You're going to pick up some people skills, and then you're going to come back in. But I'm capable of doing that. And I don't do it in a mean way, not at all. I am just telling them, this is how you interact with me if you want something from me.
Mm.
But I've picked that up along the way by not always being a kind person. I was an extremely bad boss. I had extremely bad bosses. I was the coworker you didn't want to have. But because I the same as you, because I did the work on myself, and because I was able to look deep inside and look in the shadow and say, holy goodness, okay, this shows up because of this pain. So we're going to fix this pain. We're going to heal this pain. And I'm still healing it. Then I'm going to show up better. But you said something earlier that I absolutely adore, because if you are able, if someone bothers to teach you, if you're willing to learn, you can speak your truth from the moment something is created or something is triggered, instead of, well, he said this, yes, but she said that, yeah, but he said this, and then it escalates to points that are 100 million% pointless and completely avoidable.
Yeah.
And I have an example. I recently, like a few weeks ago, started dating somebody new, and he said something and it triggered me. And I froze, which, as you can tell, doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
And I froze, and the conversation ended. It was meant to be a short conversation. It was more of a, what time do you show up, and let's meet at this point, and that was it. But I got so triggered, Mark. I got so triggered. And I went inside myself. I went no, he's not going to speak to me this way. But I did that all on my own. And then, but now I have the tools, and that's, what you teach. And then I was able to sit with myself and say, okay, hang on. Let's sit. Let's look at this. Let's look at this for what it is. Let's look at the facts. What were the words? And how did you respond? And as soon as I was able to just self-regulate and say, okay, so there's two things. A, we're going to validate with him what he meant, because there's also a language barrier. So what he meant by that. And B, in your next coaching session, you're going to go look at what was woken up. Because the fact that he woke it up has nothing to do with him. It has nothing to do with him. So for me, it was okay, so that hasn't healed completely yet.
Right.
It's an opportunity to go heal that.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did. 3 days later, it just so happened my coaching session was already booked. I walked in my coach's office and I said, oh, I know what we're talking about this time.
Yeah.
explain what had happened, how I got triggered, what got woken up, and we said, okay, so let's go into that. But I didn't become passive aggressive, which was my drug of choice for about 3 decades, 3.5 decades. I didn't go passive aggressive. I didn't go into resentment. He's not going to talk to me like this, and all that crap. And when we came together again, I said, listen, what did you mean by this? And
Mm.
turns out it was just a language barrier thing.
Right.
That's all it was. But we need to look at, okay, hang on. Okay, the emotions are running high here. So let's look at them, because the emotions are there to say something to you. Okay. This conversation will never end.
Well, I
I
want to make one
think,
more point before we
yeah,
transition. Is
please.
that okay? In the office situation,
Yeah.
the idea of attunement or calibration to the person you're working with's level of capacity, right? That's what respecting the workplace and respecting your colleagues has as its core. The ability to recognize what bandwidth that your current cohort has available and learning how to meet them there in a way that still includes this idea of EQ, but doesn't blow people out, because everybody's got different attachment styles, different triggers. And
Yes.
so that attunement and that calibration, that's where radical responsibility comes in, which is what you were just talking about, that
Yeah.
idea of self-regulating our nervous system. So I want to
Yeah.
make sure we get to that before we
Yeah.
move on. Thank you.
Okay, so Mark, please promise me. I know you don't owe me anything. But please promise me you're gonna go connect with Melissa Robinson Weinmiller. You guys, you need to speak. So she's in the comment section. So you're gonna
Yeah.
start a conversation with her. That will never end either. So I think I think that's her. Um,
Hi, Melissa.
I think that we've really got really deep inside of your purpose, but I'm still going to ask the question, what's your life's purpose? Have you discovered your life's purpose? And if so, how? But I think you've answered it, but let's go.
I'm a man devoted to inspiring creativity and energizing people. That's my purpose.
I love that.
That sentence is hard won. I took classes for weeks to be able to get to that answer.
Yeah.
And the work was done through a gentleman named Craig Filek. And Craig runs a website called Purpose Mapping. I'm not sure if that's the
Mm,
right address, but it's Craig Filek, Filek. And it's an incredible process that's where you're witnessed by other people as you go through all the things. It takes weeks. And then you really boil it down to a key thing. I'm a man devoted to inspiring creativity and energizing people. That is my purpose. Now, it's
beautiful.
interesting because I do that through my coaching and my writing, but also through music, which I love
Mhm.
doing, right? And it turns out that's it. That's the whole thing. It's like that one sentence brings it all in, and I can align it to whatever arena, whatever context
Yeah.
I'm in. And it's my talent, it's my purpose, but it's also easeful. Like I'm
Mm,
not making effort. It just is what I do.
yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, unfortunately, we're coming to close to the end.
Mhm.
I always offered the opportunity for my guests to ask me a question. I feel like I've spoken a lot in this particular episode, so if you don't have a question for me, that's fine. Um, and yeah, so let's start with that. Do you have a question for me?
Well, I have two. And the
Okay.
first is it okay if I ask a question that might be a little bit edgy for you?
Oh, you got yeah.
Okay. So, what thing are you really desirous of having that you are not letting yourself have right now?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. I would expect nothing less from you. Um, True intimacy. and I'm working on
Mm,
it.
got it.
I've been single my whole life. Half of it, I thought half of it was that I just wasn't meeting the right person when, with a lot of work on myself, figured out that the reason I wasn't attracting it to my life is because I truly felt I didn't want it, when in reality, I felt I didn't deserve it.
Mm.
Um, and now I don't believe that I'll ever get like married, but I want to give myself the permission to truly create a partnership that goes beyond sharing a mortgage and car payments.
What about that is something that you're not letting happen? What is it about you that won't let that happen?
Um, well, we've spoken about that a little bit on your show. Um, So the big trauma in my life, I've shared that so often now. The big trauma in my life is that my mom passed away when I was 5, and I was the youngest. So my sister was 11, my brother was 9, and I was 5. So as luck would have it, I know it's not the accurate, the proper way of saying this, but as luck would have it, the fact that I wasn't done with my, like, the 0 to 7
Mhm.
years of age, where where your brain develops, and you're like, you figure out, or you create how you're going to function in this world. The fact that I wasn't done, there was a part of my development that got cut off, and it took me 30 years to before I actually went to therapy and I started working on that. And my mom and I, oh my God, we're two peas in the pod. And that, I think that that's one of the reasons why my relationship with my dad was so difficult when I was a kid and a teenager and even a young adult, because I reminded him so much of his late wife that it
Mm.
was hard, because he was in that pain all the time, because I'm like the carbon copy of who she was. Um, so for me, it was unconsciously at 5 when she passed away, I decided I was going to live her life, that it was my duty to live her life. So
Mhm.
that's what I did for 32 years after she passed. And once I outlived her, so once I turned 37, because she was 36 when she passed away, once I outlived her, then I didn't have the roadmap anymore.
Mm.
So that then I literally had two choices, and I shared that with Greg last week. That was one of his questions: is, did you ever had a moment where you thought you would end it? And I didn't know how to live my life, Mark. I didn't know. I hadn't for the 32 years. So between age 5 and age 37, I didn't live my life. I lived hers. And so when I came to 37, and I was so sick and tired of being angry and hurt and bitter and sad all of the goddamn time. And I'm a pretty, like, naturally, I'm a pretty happy go lucky kind of girl. It's just, it was buried. Like, who I am for real was buried. So it's an extremely long answer to say that I needed to outlive my mom before I gave myself permission. And I fixed everything else. I healed. I shouldn't say fix. I should say I healed everything else in regards to the impact that that trauma had on my life. And I feel now that the true intimacy, the letting someone in for real in every aspect, in all of the darkness, in all of the little corners, in every little part of me, I'm ready now to start doing that. Now, have I got the right partner or it's too early to tell? But I'm ready. I think that I've attracted the right partner at the right time.
Got it.
I
I
think
really appreciate the level of depth that you went into
right.
your answer with. And I'm clear that you're going to
Yeah, I
find
think
just
so
the
too.
thing you want in the
Yeah.
right time for you.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, when I started this show, when I came with the concept of this show, I told myself, I made a promise to myself that I was going to trust whatever this is, the higher power, the God, the universe, the angels, the karma, the what, all of it. It's all the same energy. For me, it's all the same energy. You put the name you want on it. I'll put the name I want on it. Um, but I was going to trust that whatever question was going to come my way deserved an answer because it was going to be the right question at the right time. So I promised I would answer anything, and I have.
what a treat it's been to be with you today. It's so fun.
We're going to have
Thank
to do this again.
anytime.
Go connect with Melissa Robinson Moimiller.
Yeah, and everyone who chatted, who's
I said it 3 times now, Melissa. I can't plug you more than I have.
I will. I'm going to go to the comment section and I'm going to offer connection to everyone that I see in the comment section.
Wonderful. They are all beautiful people, and they're all in the Hands of Business community, which you and Greg I'm gonna bug you both in regards to that. Thank you so much, for being here, for your candor too. I mean, you were pretty transparent and you were pretty open, which I expected nothing less. Guys in the audience, you guys are awesome, and I adore every single one of you. And if we're not connected yet, please connect with me. And oh, Melissa, I love you. She truly is my sister from another mister. Her and Sindel that you've met in the backstage. I love all of you, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys.